So here is the account of what happened to my daughter and I on that fateful day, shall we call it. My daughter attends Heronbridge College in the Lion Park area, Chartwell area of Johannesburg, and we travel to school via Cedar Road and the Lion Park Road in fairly congested traffic conditions. We discovered that there's a shortcut over the farmlands that basically shortcuts the traffic between Cedar Road and Lion Park Road, which is a road we used for the whole year that my daughter was in grade 0, and obviously up to and including the day that we got washed into the Jukskei River on the 29th of January. On that day we obviously drove down to the river and approached the causeway bridge that crosses the little Jukskei River. This section of the river is right at the junction of the little Jukskei and the large Jukskei in front of Heronbridge College. The day before and the day before that, I'd crossed that same causeway bridge with a fairly low amount of water spilling over it, and on that day the water height was no different to any other. The weather was inclement but not raining at the time, and we ventured across the causeway as we had done the day before, and unfortunately about 3 or 4 meters from the other side of the bridge, all of a sudden my motor car, the rear end of my motor car, started twisting out from underneath me, if I can put it that way, and I looked over my left shoulder and literally saw a wave of water spilling right over the back of my car and pushing us off the bridge. It managed to carry us successfully right off the bridge and into the Jukskei River. We swirled in circles a few times and came to rest probably about 20 meters further down the river. Luckily we were nearly across the river, so we were very close to the side, to the bank of the river when we grounded, and luckily, being a large heavy motor car that I was driving, it managed to ground itself and find what appeared to be the only sandbank in the middle of the river. So I think we can consider ourselves very lucky on that day that somebody was watching out for us. It was a Range Rover motor car, which as most people would know is a very electronic and fancy motor car with all sorts of electrical paraphernalia, which was the first thought that went through my mind, was that, oh my goodness, this is an electric motor car, and if I get water in everywhere, I'm going to have no electrics. It means I can't open any windows. So I suppose my survival instinct was to open my driver's door window and my sunroof so that we would have an exit out of the car should we get toppled over and be drowned basically by the river. So the strangest form of panic set in, and I suppose I only realized that it was panic afterwards, was that at the time I pulled my cell phone out of my pocket but couldn't for the life of me decide which number to dial. Do you phone the flying squad? Do you phone the ambulance? Do you fire brigade, Netcare 911? And I managed to look up across my windshield effectively and at my daughter's school across the river, and I noticed that there were a number of people on their cell phones having seen what had happened. So I thought to myself, well, let me not bother to even try and make a phone call, but rather let me try and find the quickest path of least resistance to get my daughter to safety, because that was really all I was concerned about, is that I can get her safely to the side no matter what happens to me or to the car. So I said to her, let's get out on the sunroof. She did get slightly panic-stricken and a little bit tearful, and she said, "Dad, what now?" And I said to her, "Love, I promise you one thing today, that if nothing else, I'll make sure I get you safely to the riverbank. That's a promise." So she calmed down and actually put a smile on her face actually when I said, "Right, now climb out the sunroof and sit on the roof." And then we both climbed out, and then I sort of looked around and saw that the people were still on their phones, and then I was looking for the path of shortest resistance to if I have to run and jump and dive with my daughter on my back to get out of the river. And luckily, literally seconds later, a gentleman by the name of France who operates a business on the side of the river came along in his trusty Land Rover Defender with his staff in a little rowboat, and they had a rope on the rowboat which they let into the water, and the river was running so rapidly at the time that the boat went right past the car. So I thought to myself, well, now how do I get this boat up close to us so that I can get my daughter into it? And then I looked over at the Land Rover and I said to France, throw me the winch cable. And obviously it's a big heavy steel cable with a metal hook on it, and eventually on about the, I don't know, 7th or 8th attempt I managed to catch this cable, and you know, I could pull it tight, and then the next time they put the boat into the river, the guys could grab at the cable overhead, and then I could reel them closer to the car, and we reeled them in using the winch cable, and they grabbed onto the side of the car, and I just grabbed my daughter, you know, literally from out the sunroof, because I had told her to get back inside the car so that she doesn't get hit by this steel winch cable hook. I grabbed her out the sunroof and I just dropped her in the boat, and I just said to them, please just take her to safety. And as I dropped her in and they were preparing to go, I just grabbed my laptop bag, which was the only thing of any value which had information on it. I just dropped that into the boat, and they pulled her safely to the side. And one of the ladies who works with France very kindly put a blanket around my daughter and comforted her. At that stage I was still sitting on the roof of the car, and they brought the boat back for me, and we did the same again and reeled the boat in, at which point I then climbed down the back of the motor car, thinking to myself, well, okay, I've got a winch cable here, I might as well hook the winch cable to the recovery hook on my car to prevent it from you know, being washed right down the river. So, you know, the car was, you know, the water was up to the roof height effectively, so I had to climb down onto the back of the bumper, and I took a chance and stepped back, thinking that because my car's on a sandbank that I'd be able to find a footing. So I stepped down off the back, and at that point I was, you know, right up with the water under my chin, and I grabbed the hook and then went under the water to try and find the recovery hook to hook the winch cable on, so at least we could keep the car safe, if I can call it that. God knows why I haven't bothered to do that, but hey. And then the boat came back for me, and I thought, well, okay, let me step towards the boat. And as I stepped literally off the sandbank into nothing. So I went under the water, luckily managed to grab onto the back of the boat, and I said to them, just pull, I'll hold on to the back of the boat, just pull me out. And I got pulled to safety, and that is basically really what happened. So I get to the side and, you know, comfort my daughter, and oddly enough, actually, as resilient as children are and as wonderfully confident and outspoken as my daughter is, she still laughed at me while she was standing on the bank and I was still in the car, saying, well, Dad, I don't suppose we're going to take this road to school again, are we?